There's a newly released video showing police brutality involving BART officials in the Bay Area. They're beating a 28-year-old woman by the name of Sheehan. Apparently, she was belligerent, she was drunk, and as a result, the authorities arrived on the scene and they reacted in what I would argue is an unprofessional and brutal way. Now, Sheehan, 28, was arrested for being drunk and belligerent at a BART station on St. Patrick's Day of 2014. So this was from last year. According to police reports, she struggled with police while arrested, and then in the car ride over the Santa Rita Jail in Dublin, she urinated and tried to wipe herself on arresting Officer Nolan Pianta's pants. Pianta's pants. Okay. So things got pretty bad when they actually got to the police station. Apparently, she was being unruly there, and at one point, the police officer in question here, Pianta, says that he needed to get physical with her because he needed to find a way to subdue her. In fact, he says, to protect myself from her attack and to stop her attack on me, I used an armbar takedown and guided her to the ground. Upon guiding her to the ground, she landed on her face and appeared to go unconscious.
Now, you mentioned the stuff about the urinating and everything, and obviously that, that's gross and would make any person angry, and a cop is able, I think a rational person thinks a cop gets some discretion when you urinate on him. Although drunk people have peed on themselves throughout history, but she tried to use his uniform to wipe herself. That part's funny. It's funny that I mentioned a hair tie. I forgot, but her big sin was flicking a hair tie at him.
Yes, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I actually forgot about that
That's
detail.
the thing. This sent him into a...
I didn't know how much that was going to hurt.
Not at all, as it turned out.
It didn't hurt at all.
But that act sent him into some sort of rage.
It did. And look, the reason why I gave you his statement is because this is the statement he made prior to the video that just got released, okay? Remember, he said that he guided her to the ground, which makes it sound so nonviolent. Well, take a look at the video and then judge for yourself.
Grabs her right hand while the BART officer takes her left hand, and they throw her down face first. Sheehan's attorney, John Scott.
And they knew by throwing her to the ground without having her hands available to break the fall that she was going to suffer serious head injuries.
We have photos of those injuries. So these are difficult to look at. They're graphic. They involve blood. I want to give you that warning so you can look away if you don't want to take a look at it. But with that said, let's look at the first picture. She's laying there in a pool of her own blood, and then she had to go to the hospital to receive treatment.
Yeah, of course.
Let's take a look at the second photo. So there's the damage. I get it. She was drunk. She was belligerent. But the question is, did the punishment fit the crime? According to reports, no criminal charges were brought against Sheehan, who spent 2 days in the hospital recovering from her injuries, which totaled to 4 broken cheekbones, a split molar, and a cracked front tooth. He just guided her to the floor.
It's the same thing. He got mad because she'd been disruptive in the car. Although the fact that now we've seen the video and that this little act, that act somehow sent him into a rage. Like, you're not... Now I actually wonder whether she
even did it.
Did the other stuff, in the car. And of course, she was no danger. She had committed no crime. Her crime was being drunk outside. Yes, I got it. That's technically a crime, but she wasn't a threat to anyone. These are people who, in years past, you slept it off in the drunk tank, right? And I don't understand how big, tough guys who think they're tough and the irony, of course, they have an incredibly difficult job and an incredibly dangerous job. Wasn't dangerous at the police station with a handcuffed, drunk woman already tied up.
There were several police officers there.
Yeah, you're not...
Male police officers. And so, does she pose an imminent threat? I get it. You want to subdue her. But there are ways of restraining her, which she's partially restrained already, where you don't break bones and you don't cause severe damage and you don't resort to unmitigated violence, and that's what happened there.
You tie her up, you handcuff her. You know what I mean by tie her up. You handcuff her, you restrain her, then you put her in a cell.
Yeah.
You don't get violent, and what we saw here was the same sort of, again, this cultural flip out because you've had your, I don't know whether it's your masculinity, but at very minimum, what is true is you've had your authority questioned. You flicked a hair tie, right? Question your authority. She would not listen to you, and she flicked a hair tie. And then you take a bound person, a person who cannot protect themselves, and throw them to the ground. That is what happened to Freddie Gray. We don't have all the details yet, but we know that they eagerly tied him up, no matter what happened in the arrest, whether they went too far in the arrest or not, but a guy who had no weapon on him. Yes, a switchblade, which you're allowed to carry. Freddie Gray was not committing a crime. He ran from the cops. We don't know why they ran after him, but again, no crime committed, running from the cops, right? And then they arrest him. I got it. He ran from the cops. They ran after him. They got pissed, and so to punish him, it would appear they cuffed him and put him in the back of a van and then went on a nickel ride and slammed him around the van because that's the fun kind of thing they do. Look, if you're so big and tough, have real fights. I wouldn't feel big and tough beating up somebody I can beat up anybody if they're handcuffed. I can beat up most people if they're handcuffed, right? I'm going to win most fights. It's not a measure. I do not understand it, except that you cannot control your anger.